Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Skyblock News. I'm your host, Derailious, and today we're going to be going over another patch to the Taurus Canyon update, including some foraging nerfs, some hunting changes, and some new items. Before we begin, though, make sure to like and subscribe, use code RAIL in the Hypixel store for 5% off your order, and without any further ado, let's get started. Let's begin with some foraging nerfs. If you have Petalfall on your axe, you'll notice that Timber is now considered a full stat, and this by itself is a good thing. It's nice to see it, and you can actually view it in the Foraging Stats menu. The problem is, Timber now only works on your first melee axe cut on a tree. It does not apply any other time. They've also nerfed the Timber Heart of the Forest node from 2.5 down to 1, which is a very significant nerf. The TLDR with this is that it does make the experience of chopping down trees just a little bit more cumbersome. A lot of the dopamine hits that you got in the past from getting a timber proc won't happen anymore, and the whole experience of just chopping down trees in general just feels a little bit less fun in my experience, although obviously your rates will vary and your experience as a whole will vary. The sweep formula as a whole was also changed. As you can see, the numbers are now different at swoop, and if you speak to him, you can actually see how much additional sweep you'll need in order to cut an additional log. This stuff by itself, once again, isn't too bad, and also isn't really a nerf by itself, but they did nerf the total amount of logs you can chop when you have maxed out sweep. Previously, it was up to 35 logs. Now, as you can see, it's only 20. This is a very significant nerf for people who still want to interact with Fig and Mangrove. In the past, you were able to get a lot of logs chopped down beyond just 20. Now, 20 is your limit. Like the last change, there was a brief mention of this in the patch notes, but the overall nerf was not brought up. In terms of new items, we have the Mushroom. This you unlock at Vine Sap Tier 8, and as you can see, you need a bunch of enchanted vine sap, some wet water, and some stretching sticks, and this gets you the Mushroom. This can be applied to equipment to give it fishing speed, sea creature chance, and foraging fortune, as well as increasing your Forest Whisper gain by 1%. I quite like this item. However, I do think the fact that it only applies to Forest Whispers is a pretty interesting choice. I get it overall, maybe they don't want it to work on future things, but if they don't want it to work on future things, they should add other reforges that also buff those other types of whispers, like for example Desert Whispers, and I imagine there's going to be a third type whenever they work on Lunarize. Regardless though, this item is nice. There is also a new mob type alongside this update, the Timid mob type. This is for all mobs that will typically flee or hide from the player, and a good example of one of these mobs would be the Blue Jay on the Taurus Canyon. The full list is on the left side of your screen now. There is also a bit of a rework to stealth. As you can see, it now goes up to level 5, and I believe it has a level 6 end cap upgrade. And it also works on all mobs with the timid mob type. In exchange, though, it doesn't work at a 100% rate. It only works at that 50 and then eventually 60% rate. You will see a message in chat when it procs. So for example, as you can see, this mob is timid. It has been caught by my stealth. I don't need to interact with its mechanic. I can just instantly catch it. I think this is kind of nice, I've got to say. I will say as a whole, I think the stealth mechanic is just kind of a weird gimmick, but it's nice to see it apply to so many more mobs now, especially those on the Taurus Canyon. Alongside this update, if you take a look at the Distant Echo, you can see it now applies to stealth instead of karma. It is the end cap item. For reference, you get this from the Silk Breezes. If you still want karma, you can get it from the Helix Tree Gifts at a 0.02% rate. It upgrades karma by 1. It is called the Forest Favor. Alongside this update, they made a pretty big change to the Elusive Shard family, and it has been completely removed. All mobs with the Elusive mob type that can drop a shard will always drop it on kill. Sanger's dialogue has been updated to better explain this mechanic, and this applies to a lot of different shards. A good example would be Skathas. That shard was particularly annoying for people to get because it was not part of the Elusive family, even though Elusive mobs include Skathas. It was very weird, the mechanic didn't make a lot of sense, they got rid of it. Now it's just built on whether or not the mob is elusive. Way better. There is a pot of honeycomb related change here. As you can see, you now get multiple pots of honeycomb when you craft them. This is because they are now one use only. You are not able to have multiple charges. They're also stackable, and I believe you can sell them on the bazaar, as you can see here. The reason why this was done is auction house scamming. People were taking these pots of honeycomb, they were using them up down to one use only, and then they were putting them on the auction house. It was just a major pain to deal with, and the team had decided, hey, we have enough. We're going to make it so you have to craft these in larger groups, and they're only one use each, which does kind of suck, but that is the nature of these sorts of changes. The Brineling got a new drop in the form of Sea Brine, which you actually need in order to make the Brine Tonic. This is a new item. You need Sea Brine, you need Lush Lilacs, and you need Wet Water, and this will get you Brine Tonic, which gives you 2.75 charm chance on Moonglade Marsh sea creatures and Taurus Canyon sea creatures for 24 hours. There are also a few other changes to go over here on the forums. They have added Taurus sea creature shards to the Hunt Trap pool. This includes Haggards, Brinelings, Sprawls, as well as Torrids, Silk Breezes, and Giant Isopods. They've also made a few other important changes, including buffing the amount of Heart of the Forest XP you gain from tree gifts. I think this is fairly solid. They've also improved the amount of XP you get, foraging XP you get, from Myria contest rewards. I think both of these changes are solid. The team has also made some good changes to the Honeycomb system. They've adjusted Honeycomb messages to now mention the general location of the tree that attracted a critter. It was really annoying before getting that message in chat, and it could be any tree on the island. Now, it being a little bit more clear is a good thing. The team has also adjusted some sources of point gain for Myria's contests. Basically, there is a lot of buffs here with some small amount of nerfs. Mobs getting killed has been dropped from 8 to 4, and Ruby Veilstrom has been dropped from 12 to 8, and Sea Lumi gain has been completely removed, which makes sense. On top of that, there are a few other important things to go over, like all Taurus sea creatures now being set to charm only. I don't really like this change at all. I think they could have made these mobs black holeable, and it would have been a whole lot better. The reason why they justify this change, or how they justify this change, is basically by saying they want to avoid disrupting the gameplay loop of fishing, and also because you need to kill them more times than other mobs on the island due to their high bestiaries. Doesn't really make sense given they stated already they want the bestiaries to be lower, so you take advantage of all of the buffs. Doesn't really make sense to retroactively justify the bestiaries being high for these mobs, but whatever, I suppose. It's a change to Taurus sea creatures specifically. In terms of bug fixes, they have fixed the attribute menu and hunting box, repeatedly setting you back to page 1 and resetting the filters. That was really obnoxious. I'm glad they have fixed it. They've also fixed an issue causing players to be unable to lasso mobs if they are standing too close to them. They've also fixed the Hocus Pocus cipher not being rift transferable. That is intriguing. And they have done a bunch of other smaller changes, like the Queen Ant shard not working against Queen Ants, and a few other changes as well to fusion recipes. The Queen Ant shard has been changed from Ant plus Elusive family to Ant plus Queen Bee, and the Special Zealot shard got changed from Zealot plus Elusive family to obtainable via generic fusion. Makes sense given the change they made to the Elusive shard family, in that they have removed the Elusive shard family. For the last change today, they have reduced Shellfruit drops to only be cocoa beans. This is another nerf to Shellfruit, but frankly it is pretty much deserved. It was still too powerful prior to this update, and it needed some more nerfs, so it has been hit pretty hard. Overall, I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of the changes in this update, especially the foraging nerfs. It really does feel like they've taken a lot of the fun aspects of foraging out of foraging. I had a lot of positive things to say about the gameplay of foraging, especially with Timber. I understand it needed a nerf. Probably just one of these two changes, the nerfed overall chance and the first hit. I think the first hit effect is probably the worst part of this. Would have been fine to just lower the numbers a little bit and call it a day, but I don't know. I don't really know what the team is up to with a lot of these changes. They feel very short-sighted. It's nice to see some improvements, though, in terms of things like the Elusive shard family getting removed. That is a great change. Some of the new items, really solid. As a whole, though, just disappointed with the foraging-related stuff. Would love to hear your thoughts about this update down below, though, and look to the future, fellas. I'll see you then.